If it's Tuesday, 2 weeks to go. Former President Obama and Governor Tim Walz campaign in must-win Wisconsin. As sources tell NBC News, the Harris campaign is bracing for a potentially devastating loss in one of its blue wall states. Plus, former President Trump says he's seen no evidence of cheating in the 2024 election, but doubles down on sowing doubt and distrust in the integrity of the vote, while baselessly claiming he is leading in every state. And inside the hotly competitive contest that could decide which party controls Congress and why the key to winning the House could run through a pair of solidly blue states. Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Gabe Gutierrez in Washington, just 2 weeks from Election Day, with every moment crucial for both campaigns. And new reporting from NBC News that the Harris team has begun to see some cracks in the so-called blue wall states, along with signs that North Carolina may be out of reach for them as well. It all comes as Vice President Harris spent yesterday blitzing every one of those blue wall states with events in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, alongside former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney. Their message to voters that former President Trump is unfit for another term in office.
In this election, and especially here in Pennsylvania, we have the opportunity to tell the whole world who we are. And we have the chance to say, you know, we're going to reject cruelty. We're going to reject the kind of vile vitriol that we've seen from Donald Trump.
I believe what is at stake in this election is so fundamental for us as Americans. And it is about, do we take seriously the importance of a president who obeys the oath to be loyal to the Constitution of the United States? I've said many times, I do believe Donald Trump to be an unserious man. But the consequences of him ever being in the White House again are brutally serious. And I think that what we see about him in public, whether it be his rallies, I think it does lead us, and it should lead us to observe that he is increasingly unstable.
If you wouldn't hire somebody to babysit your kids, like, you shouldn't make that guy the president of the United States. I mean, that's pretty basic.
And today, more of the Democratic cavalry is in those blue wall states, with running mate Governor Tim Walz and former President Barack Obama hitting the trail in Madison, Wisconsin. You're looking at live pictures of that event right now. And meanwhile, former President Trump will be campaigning in North Carolina for a second day in a row, where yesterday he was projecting high levels of confidence, brazenly and falsely suggesting that the only way he could lose is through election fraud.
We're winning by a lot. We're leading by a lot. We're leading in the polls. Every single state looks like we're doing really well. I was in California. I'd love to have God to come down and be the vote counter just for one day and see how well we're doing in California. Did you ever hear the expression that the vote counter is far more important than the candidate? And unfortunately, we can't let that happen. We've got to take it back. The vote counter is more important than the candidate. That's been true, unfortunately.
And we should note, there is no evidence whatsoever to back up Trump's often repeated claims of election fraud and election conspiracies. In addition to sowing doubts about the results, should he lose, Trump is also lashing out at Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. Here's some of what he said earlier today at a roundtable with Latino voters in Florida.
This woman is the worst, the lying. It's just unbelievable. And then she's got the worst governor in the country, probably the worst. I think she made a horrible mistake. We'll see what happens on November 5th, you know. Let's see what happens. But there's something wrong with him, honestly. There's something wrong. And there's something wrong with her, too. She's slow, low IQ, something. I don't know what the hell it is, but they lie. We don't need another low IQ person.
And joining me now is our NBC News team. Monica Alba here with me on set with the latest on the Harris campaign. Garrett Haake is in Greensboro, North Carolina, where Donald Trump will rally tonight. Ryan Nobles is in Texas as Harris prepares to campaign there on Friday. and Shaq Brewster is talking to voters on the first day of early voting in Wisconsin. Thank you all so much for joining us. And Monica, I want to turn to you and your new reporting on Democrats fearing that there could be some cracks in the blue wall. Walk us through it.
Yeah, and this is really notable, Gabe, because, of course, for weeks now, the Harris campaign has been saying that the path to 270 likely does go through these blue wall states, and that's why you've seen the vice president and her running mate spending so much time there. All of last week, basically, they were in one of those states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, every single day going back and forth, and that's what you're going to continue to see. But now our new reporting reflects that there is a nervousness that there could be an anomaly, which is that one of the blue states could fall, essentially meaning she could win the other two, but there is particular concern about Michigan, for example, and that would mean that then she would have to pick up obviously another key battleground state. So it raises questions about their positioning in North Carolina or in a Nevada or in Arizona. And of course, she will continue to go to all of those different places. But it does suggest that we know this race has been really tight, but the traditional roadmap is something that, of course, they're eyeing and they're trying to shore up in other places in case that does happen.
And you know, what's interesting is actually the event with former President Obama is underway right now in Wisconsin. Let's take a listen and dip in and see what he's telling the audience there.
So he's standing there and he's swaying the Ave Maria and YMCA. And, you know, the governor from South Dakota, she's standing there with this weird look on her face like she doesn't really know what's going on. She's like, it's like a hostage video. Can you imagine if Tim did that, or Kamala did that, or I did that? Now, our playlist would be better, but you would say to yourself, this is odd behavior. He called himself the father of IVF. No, I have no idea what that means. You don't either. He said January 6th was a day of love. Hey, you're going to hear this from me. Do not boo. Vote. They can't hear you boo. They can hear your vote. That's the way to send a message. So, look, my point is, you'd be worried if Grandpa was acting like this. Right? You'd call up your brother, you'd call up your cousins, you say, have you noticed? But this is coming from somebody who wants unchecked power. So, Wisconsin, we do not need to see what an older, loonier Donald Trump looks like with no guardrails. America's ready to turn the page. We are ready for a better story, Wisconsin. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris. And the good news is Kamala Harris is ready for the job. This is a leader who has spent her life fighting on behalf of people who need a voice and need a champion. Somebody who was raised in a middle-class family, who actually worked at McDonald's when she was in college to pay her expenses, didn't just pretend like he worked at McDonald's when it was closed. Someone who believes in the values that built this country and who is as prepared for the job as any nominee for president has ever been. So the point is Kamala knows you. She knows your life. She knows what it's like to scrap and to strive and to work hard and to see her mom worry about the bills. So does Tim. So if you elect them, they will be focused on your problems. They understand that too many folks here in Wisconsin are struggling to pay the bills. And understand, wages have been steadily growing. Unemployment has been dropped, has dropped. Inflation is finally slowing. But the price of everything from healthcare to housing to groceries is still too high, and it hurts. So the question is not, do you want to see better? The question is, who's going to actually do something about this? So, par for the course, Donald Trump's plan is to give another massive tax cut to billionaires and big corporations. And I've talked to some folks, and they'll say, yeah, but you know, I do remember the economy was pretty good when Trump first came in office. And I said, yeah, because it was my economy. I had spent 8 years cleaning up the mess that the Republicans left me. I had spent 8 years getting the auto industry back on track, reopening factories. So when I handed over 75 straight months of job growth to Donald Trump, all he did was give a tax cut to people who didn't need it, drove up the deficits in the process. So don't have nostalgia for what his economy was, because that was mine. And now he wants to do it again. When it comes to healthcare, Donald Trump's got one answer, and that is to end the Affordable Care Act, not because he's got a good reason for it, but because it's Obamacare, right? So a couple of weeks ago, but the problem is, the problem that he's got now is that it's popular because 50 million people have used it and are still using it. And so when he was asked about it, when his running mate was asked about it during their debate, the guy's got the nerve, the chutzpah, to say Donald Trump salvaged the Affordable Care Act. Now, come on, man. Donald Trump spent his entire presidency trying to tear it down, and he couldn't even do that right. And now, 8 years after elected, you know, some of y'all watched the debate. 8 years later, he's asked about it during his debate with Kamala, and they say, well, you want to get rid of Obamacare. What would you replace it with? He says, well, I've got concepts of a plan. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. So let's say your boss gives you an assignment. Says, I need it by Friday. Friday rolls around. And your boss says, so did you finish that project I asked for? You say, well, I haven't actually started, but I do have a concept for a plan. Or you could try it at home. Honey, did you do the dishes? Not yet. But I do have a concept of a plan for doing the dishes. How's that going to go? If it wouldn't work
and
for
that
you,
is former President Obama live in Madison, Wisconsin, campaigning with Governor Tim Walz. I want to go back to White House correspondent Monica Alba. And Monica, that's why former President Obama is such a good messenger, probably among the best messengers that Democrats have. Still, though, he has not yet campaigned alongside Vice President Harris just yet, but that changes later this week, right?
Exactly. He's going to be heading to Georgia, where he will appear with the vice president, and then she will be appearing with Michelle Obama, the two of them together on the trail for the first time since she became a candidate this weekend. So that high star power from the Democrats, who really have been trying to argue that in the final stretch, in the closing days, that could make some kind of an impact. You're going to start to see that. But in between those two things, Gabe, it's notable that the vice president is going to go to Texas on Friday, where she's specifically going to be talking about the issue of abortion and putting that into the context of what it could mean in some of these down ballot races, the Senate race there in particular. And she's going to be trying to highlight and boost Colin Allred and her support for him there and generalize this topic, this issue that really the Democratic campaign views as the most galvanizing for supporters. She's going to go do that in Texas, where they think that could have a big message with probably a good amount of media coverage, which is what they're going for, too.
Monica Alba, our White House correspondent covering the Harris campaign. Monica, thank you so much. I want to turn now to some of our other reporters on the trail. Garrett Hake is following the Trump campaign in North Carolina. And Garrett, Trump will be back in North Carolina for a second straight day. Is that a sign that neither campaign is feeling too great about the Tar Heel state?
Yeah, I think it is, Gabe. I mean, the Trump campaign never admits to weakness or concern about any of these battleground states. But remember, he was supposed to be giving a speech to the NRA tonight in Georgia. Instead, they canceled that event to stand up this one here in Greensboro, which you can't quite see, is in the Coliseum next to me, attached to an early voting site here, trying to kind of vacuum in some of those early voters here. For the Trump campaign, there's really no path, or at least no path that makes a lot of sense back to the White House without holding on to North Carolina, then flipping back Georgia, then winning Pennsylvania. That's the way they see it. Domino number one that has to fall is keeping North Carolina in the Republican column.
And Garrett, you know, he seems to be going all in on young male voters. Today we just found out that he's going to be on the Joe Rogan podcast on Friday. Does the campaign think that that could be, you know, a critical piece for them in these last 2 weeks?
Yeah, look, they absolutely do. If you're trying to reach young men, Trump has gone onto far more obscure podcasts and streaming channels to try to find that audience than he'll reach when he goes on the Joe Rogan Experience, which is Spotify's most downloaded podcasts in most weeks. So it definitely, you know, can cast a wide net there. I mean, the challenge for Trump all along has been turning young male Trump fans into young male voters. Having once been a young male voter myself, Gabe, I was not the most committed at all times. I imagine you might not have been either. And I think that's the challenge for the Trump campaign as we go from the persuasion part of this argument, making these people Trump fans, into getting them off their couches and into voting booths and becoming Trump voters.
So is that, Garrett, kind of what, you know, the Harris campaign spent yesterday going around with Liz Cheney trying to broaden her appeal? Is the Trump campaign doing something similar? Are they trying to broaden their appeal with young men? Are there any other groups they're looking at right now?
No, I mean, look, Gabe, there's no broadening Donald Trump's appeal, really, right? I mean, Donald Trump is the most well-known political figure in this country. He has been for at least the last 5 or 6 years, and arguably since fairly shortly after he started running for president in 2015 or 2016. To the degree they're broadening, I think it's looking at the sort of subgroups of voters where they saw growth between 2016 and 2020. Young men, that's mostly but not exclusively white men, African-American men, and Latino voters where Republicans have done better and better each election cycle, regardless of whether Trump is on the ballot, and try to message to them more actively. But in terms of kind of the sort of reinvention that it takes, or the reimagining it might take to see Kamala Harris sharing a couch with Liz Cheney to kind of truly broaden your political brand beyond the kind of folks you've spent your whole career talking to, that's just not an option for Donald Trump. I don't think it would be even remotely credible, and I don't think they could sustain it for more than a few days.
Garrett Hake following the Trump campaign in North Carolina. Garrett, thank you. I want to turn now to Ryan Nobles in Texas. And Ryan, Kamala Harris, as we mentioned, will be there in Texas on Friday, and the campaign is leaning heavily on abortion rights. And you talked to Ted Cruz about that issue yesterday. What did he say?
Yeah, Gabe, there's no doubt that culture war issues have been front and center in this Texas Senate race. For Cruz's point, he has been really hammering Colin Allred on transgender rights, accusing him of wanting or allowing boys to play in girls' sports. But it's been returned with a relentless assault on Ted Cruz as it relates to abortion, and in particular, the statewide abortion ban that exists here in Texas, one of the most strict across the country. And Colin Allred is attempting to box Cruz in on this issue particularly accusing him of not allowing for any exceptions when it comes to these abortion restrictions, and also the real threat of a potential national abortion ban. And I tried to pin Ted Cruz down on both of those topics during an interview last night. This is how it went. Just to make clear, then you're not in favor of a national ban on abortion, then? That's what you mean by Texas has one law, California has another.
Every state is going
so you
to
wouldn't
adopt,
support that legislation if it
There's
came...
not going to be a national ban. And by the way, Donald Trump...
But you wouldn't vote for it.
By the way, Donald Trump said he would veto any national ban. I can quantify the chances of any national ban at 0.00%. It's not an issue. It's a made-up issue, which the Democrats know.
But that doesn't. If the vote came up, would you vote yes or no?
My view is it is a question for the voters of the state of Texas, the state legislature, and the governor.
So that would mean you're opposed to a national ban.
My view is it's a question for the state legislature. And the
So if you were following that logic, yes, he believes that it's up to the state legislatures. What happens in Oklahoma shouldn't be the same thing as what happens in New York. What happens in Arizona is different than what happens in Montana. But when you press him on the very specific question, you'd vote no then on a national ban. He just refuses to answer. And it's important to remember the context here. Ted Cruz has introduced or co-sponsored 3 different versions of a national abortion ban during his time in the Senate. Those were all before the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. And he has said in the past that he is opposed to any restrictions on abortion bans, including rape, incest, or life of the mother. So the fact that he is unwilling to come right out and say that definitively again shows just how big reproductive rights have become an issue in this Texas Senate race. And it's part of the reason you see Kamala Harris coming here on Friday. I still don't know anyone who thinks that that's a presidential battleground, but it represents a bigger part of this national conversation because of the restrictions that exist here in Texas, and it shows that that Senate race is a live ball.
Well,
Gabe?
Ryan, you're definitely persistent, so thanks for that. And one more question for you. Early voting is underway in Texas. You've been at some polling sites. I think we see one of them behind you, perhaps. What have you seen there on the ground?
Well, where we are right now in Harris County, which may be the biggest Democratic county in the country, not just in Texas, the lines have been around this building all day long. We were here before the doors opened. We've been here all day. We've never seen the line slow down. Cars have been in and out the entire time, and they saw a record number of participants yesterday on day one. We expected big numbers on day one. People are always excited to come out and say they voted on the first day of early voting. We're on day 2 now, and we're seeing that pace continue. Now, to be clear, we're seeing similar levels of enthusiasm in Republican counties as well. So people are taking advantage of this opportunity to vote early. They expect more than half of Texas voters will vote early in this election. Gabe.
Ryan Nobles, live for us in Houston. Ryan, thank you. And I want to turn now to Shaq Brewster. He's in Wisconsin, as we were talking about earlier. And we see that line of voters behind you, Shaq. As Harris looks to shore up that blue wall, you know, you're in one of those key states. What are the voters there telling you?
Yeah, a key state, and then this is a key city for Democrats in this battleground state. And what I've been seeing since before polls even started, or before they even opened, is this line. I'll tell you, inside it is packed, and then I'll kind of let you look along the line down here. These are folks coming through for the first day of in-person voting here in the state of Wisconsin. And I've been talking to folks as they've been coming through throughout the day, and I've been asking, what are those issues that are getting you out here right now? What's important to you? I want you to listen to some of the responses.
Health care, retirement, Social Security, benefits, food share, roof over your head.
The economy, freedom of choice, and integrity. Integrity means a lot, because if we can't trust you before you're in office, when you get in office, ain't no telling what's going to happen.
Number one, I'm looking for someone that cares about us, those that are not rich. And I also care about those that want to make America great and better.
Gabe, you know, as we were listening to the former president there as he rallies in Madison, it reminded me of a conversation I overheard as a voter saw the line and walked up, and she said to the person she was with, she said, I haven't seen anything like this since Obama was in office. Now, it's not an even comparison because early voting is much more accessible now, but it gives you a sense of how people here on the ground are comparing the energy and the excitement that they're feeling. That's something that has been repeated to me here. It said they're coming out because they want to have the rest of the 2 weeks until Election Day. They want to have that time to bring other people out to the polls. And by the way, you're seeing this not just in Democratic areas of the state, but you're seeing these lines, hour-long lines in Republican areas as well. That speaks a little bit to how the messaging from the Republican Party has shifted, especially in recent years, when before there were doubts cast around early voting, and now it's being encouraged by both political parties.
And that energy is something that the Harris campaign will be happy to hear. Shaq Brewster, thank you so much. Live for us in Wisconsin. Shaq, thanks. And we have an important programming note. NBC's Hallie Jackson has a one-on-one interview with Vice President Harris. Watch it straight ahead on Hallie Jackson Now and later tonight on NBC Nightly News. And coming up, as early voting shatters records in battleground Georgia, we'll talk to the state's top elections official about efforts to secure the vote and count it quickly while countering misinformation and partisan attacks. You're watching Meet the Press Now. Stay with us. Welcome back. Early voting is now in its second week in Georgia, with a record number of Georgians casting their ballots so far. More than 1.6 million ballots have already been cast. That's about a third of the total votes cast in Georgia in 2020 and accounts for more than a quarter of all active voters in the state. As for counting all of those votes, Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, says he hopes to have 70 to 75% of the vote reported by 8 p.m. on election night. And with voting ongoing, NBC has new reporting today about how officials are ramping up their security measures at polling places, with measures that include bulletproof vests, snipers, and drones as a result of the hostile political climate. In Cobb County, Georgia, for example, the sheriff will have officers at every early voting site and patrolling local precincts. And in nearby Gwinnett County, the sheriff will be overseeing security for all of its polling sites, even in unincorporated areas typically monitored by local police. And joining me now is Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for joining us here on Meet the Press Now. You know, I was in Georgia last week in Atlanta for the start of in-person early voting. It was remarkable to see that many people turn out. And as we mentioned, more than 1.6 million votes have already been cast in your state. Are you surprised by that record turnout?
Actually, I'm not. Typically, 65% of our voters vote early, and we're on track to be at that record. And then about 5 to 6% vote absentee, and then the balance of about 30% vote on election day. Actually, your number's out of date already. We're up to 1,761,000. I just checked it a minute ago. Our data hub updates it all day long, and so we're just having great turnout. We're really excited about that.
Oh, thanks. So thanks for that update. And, as we mentioned, you also expect to have counted about 70 to 75% of the ballots by 8 p.m. on election night. So is that because many voters are voting early? And how long do you expect it'll take to count all of the ballots this year?
Well, this year with SB 189, we put into state law that the counties have to have those ballots all ready to be uploaded and reported no later than 8 p.m. So it's state law that they have to do that. So we'll have then probably 65 to 70% of all the votes. Then over the night, we're going to do constant updates of all the voting that happened that day. And we expect to be done by the end of the night.
And so to that point, do you feel an added pressure, obviously with that new law that you mentioned, but do you feel an added personal pressure to count these ballots faster than 2020 to avoid the chaos that ensued after that election?
Well, we've been working with the counties on that, but we also need some additional measures in state law to actually put that in state law so the counties have these responsibilities. And one of those is to get all the absentee ballots pre-scanned that are received before the weekend. And if they do that, then they're ready to be uploaded and reported, tabulated and reported by 8 p.m. Then the early vote is pretty simple. It's already been collected. All you have to do is press the tabulation button. If you sequester, then you're ready to go at 7:01. And many of the counties actually will have a race, to be who can be the fastest. And they'll be trying to see who's the fastest county to report those results. And we'll give them a shout out when they do that, when they hit 7:01. But then we think that just builds confidence and just doesn't give these conspiracy theories enough time to really start germinating.
And Mr. Secretary, as we mentioned earlier, Donald Trump said yesterday that the vote counters are more important than the candidates. What do you think he means by that?
All I know is that voters are important, and that's why we know voting matters, and so do voters, and that's why we work so hard. We want them to have a good experience, and that's why we have really pushed to get those results up early. At the end of the day, we have a verifiable paper ballot. No matter how you vote in Georgia, we have photo ID. We have photo ID for absentee voting. We're one of only 5 states that have that. We have photo ID, obviously, for in-person voting early or election day. That builds trust for voters. Our security paper on the ballots is not something you can buy at the local office supply store. It's going to be, it has the state sealed in it and especially fibers. So that's official ballot. We've also done 2 citizenship checks so we can tell all of our voters that only American citizens are voting in our elections.
And to that point, Mr. Secretary, what do you say to the former president's suggestion that the only way he can lose is if there's fraud?
Well, here in Georgia, we stamped it out. We never really had it in 2020. All those allegations were made. We checked out every single one of them. There weren't 10,000, dead people. There's only 4. And things like that. There weren't 66,000 underage voters. There were 0. At the end of the day, we did a 100% hand recount in 2020. This time, we're going to be able to do an audit, and we're actually going to read the human readable text and be able to we have all the ballot images of all 5 million plus ballots. And we're going to do a ballot scan of all of those and do that audit and tell you what the results were for every single race, not just the presidential race. We'll even do county commissioners and also the state reps, state senators. And so there won't be any denying who the winner is, who came up short, and that's our job. Make sure we have fair, fast, and elections that are secure and are accurate. We think that's so important because that's our duty as election officials.
And Mr. Secretary, a new assessment from the intelligence community warns of foreign adversaries focusing on post-election day to sow doubts about the integrity of the results. I'm reading here, foreign adversaries are likely to perceive varying opportunities to undermine each stage of the post-voting process. This period also has a sequence of deadlines that, if missed, could disrupt the normal process and have cascading and varied effects on later stages of the process. Again, that's from an intelligence assessment. How are you preparing for issues after the votes are counted, Mr. Secretary?
Well, we know that here we're going to respond at our office as quickly as we can, but we also hope that there's outside groups that come alongside of us that can have these anti-disinformation campaigns to get out on digital media, very robust campaigns, so they can push back on stuff that's just not supported by the facts. We know that there's bad actors out there, both foreign and domestic, and we want to respond with the facts as quickly as we can before these things start putting up a life of their own.
Mr. Secretary, the RNC says it's assembling a small army of poll watchers to monitor voting locations in cities. Do you worry about voter intimidation in cities like Atlanta?
No, not at all, because we actually put in state law that if you are a poll watcher, you have to go through the poll worker training, so you actually understand what you're looking at. And so that's really important. Once you know what you're looking at, you'll realize that we have so many checks and double checks throughout the system, and we have a verifiable paper ballot. We have photo ID for all forms of voting, so it's safe, secure, and accurate here in Georgia. So bring as many observers as you want. We believe in transparency because we know it's a fair, honest election. The winner will be the winner, and there won't be any doubts.
And Mr. Secretary, before I let you go, a Fulton County judge struck down some of the controversial election rules passed by the state election board. Are you confident that the issue has been put to rest, at least for this year's election?
It has been, because the state Supreme Court just came back and denied they will not be hearing this case. So it's settled. We're moving on with state law, and that's the way it should be. And I've been pushing back against the state election board rules, been very vocal about that. So we're going to do our job. County election officers are going to do theirs, and people are doing theirs. They're coming out to vote. We think it's a good thing.
Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger of Georgia, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you luck on what's sure to be a busy couple of weeks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And up next, in the key races in places you might not expect that could decide which party controls the House. You're watching Meet the Press Now. Welcome back. Believe it or not, which party wins control of the House could very well be determined by races in 2 states that are not your usual battlegrounds, California and New York. 2 big blue states where Democrats and Republicans are fighting over a handful of House districts that could decide who controls Congress. NBC's Capitol Hill correspondent Allred Vitale has more.
I feel like I'm at a pre-mission brief back in my Army days.
This is a different kind of mission for freshman Congressman and Iraq War veteran Pat Ryan.
We won the last time by 1%, 1.3%.
The New York Democrat relying on a reproductive freedom-focused message to keep his seat in this swing district.
It's literally an existential, personal issue of freedom. And if you want to piss off the American people, take their freedom away.
His opponent, Allison Esposito, a former cop.
Campaign doesn't stop with the rain.
Hoping to overtake him by highlighting GOP hot-button issues.
It's crime, public safety, law and order, the economy, the border crisis, the attack on our kids' education. As far as abortion, my opponent wants to make this entire election about abortion. And it's not even a factor in this race. What would you like to see fixed first?
I would like to see a timeline on abortion.
Yeah, but that's funny. Like, we were saying abortion doesn't come up. Who cares?
Funny.
New York's 18th congressional district is one of 7 seats here that could decide who controls Congress. In 2022, Democrats lost 5 competitive House races in this blue state, helping Republicans win the majority, including the 17th district, where Republican Mike Lawler bested the head of the House Democratic campaign arm and is now hoping to keep this swing seat red and hold the majority.
Do you guys still deserve it after the last 2 years?
Yeah, I think, look.
It's been pretty chaotic.
Sure, but, at the end of the day, name me one thing Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats have accomplished. Not much.
Former Congressman Mondaire Jones, who's challenging Lawler, disagrees.
What's your unfinished business in Congress?
I'm really proud of the work that I started last term as part of a Congress that was actually pro-choice and pro-democracy and committed to actually delivering for my constituents here in the 17th Congressional District.
In these Hudson Valley races, a swirl of local issues, housing, affordability, and cleaning up the Hudson River, mixed with national flashpoints on immigration, abortion rights, and the economy. A controversial New Yorker on the ballot.
We're going to win New York.
And a traditionally blue state plagued by bad press for big New York Democratic names only adds to the complex landscape.
The statewide Democratic brand here, I think, is pretty toxic. But is Trump's brand better?
It's not a function of whose brand is better. I mean, frankly, you look at Kathy Hochul and Eric Adams, they're a train wreck.
I was among the first people to call for him to resign. Look, I'm like Mike Lawler, who never stands up to Donald Trump or anyone else in his party.
Competing messages flooding the airwaves thanks to more than $42 million spent in just these 2 seats alone. Both incumbents trying to tune out the partisan noise and focus on the moderate middle.
There's a reason both Joe Biden and Donald Trump have praised me. It's because I am willing to work across the aisle.
What coalition are you trying to build when you talk about having a bipartisan bill with Mike Lawler and also AOC is campaigning here with you?
I'm trying to get shit done. Like, seriously.
Seriously close races, hinging House control on New York voters' state of mind.
And Allred Vitale is here with more from the big board on those New York races and other races we're watching closely. So, Allred, show us what you're watching when it comes to the fight for control of Congress.
Yeah, because this is a really big map, Gabe, right? We often talk about the swing states for the presidential contest, but we rarely get into just how massive the map gets when you start considering the House. But first, look at the balance of Congress just to hammer home what we were saying in this piece. For Democrats to take control, it just requires them taking 4 seats away from Republicans. Now, we say just requires that as if it's some simple task, but it's why we've seen people like Leader Hakeem Jeffries, but also Speaker Mike Johnson crisscrossing this map, which you look at the way that the balance of power sits right now. I have to say this is one of the more chaotic maps, but it's also the ones that both House campaign committees on the Republican and Democratic side spend a lot of time looking at. But these are the races that they are spending millions in. We were in, of course, 2 of them in New York's 17th and, of course, 18th congressional district. But those aren't even the only seats in New York that we're watching closely. You have, of course, New York's 19th congressional district, where Republican Mark Molinaro is facing yet another rematch against Josh Riley. That's the district just above where Congressman Pat Ryan is. And then you start broadening out the map itself. You look at some of these key races in Pennsylvania, specifically around the Allentown area. That's one where Congresswoman Susan Wild is playing defense as a Democrat, trying to stave off a Republican that could encroach on Democrats' attempts to take back the majority. But then you look at the fact that this map goes not just New York, not just Pennsylvania, but all the way across. Of course, California is one that we rightly talk about a lot. But Alaska is one that I am really paying attention to closely. It's a place where I spent some time in 2022. And you had sort of a two-pronged effort here for the Democrat to be able to take this seat away from Republicans, in part because Congresswoman Mary Peltola is a bipartisan kind of Democrat, but then also because they've got a ranked choice voting system there that in 2022 allowed this three-person race to tilt towards the Democrat because two Republicans were still running, Sarah Palin, you've heard of her, and of course Nick Begich, who is now the only Republican that is back on the ballot challenging Mary Peltola here. When you have places like Alaska on the map for something that could decide control of Congress, it also gets a little dicey on the timing front because you know that it takes a longer time for Alaska to report in its ballots, not just because they do a ranked choice voting system, but because the state itself is so rural and vast, most of these voters are voting by mail. But it does give you a reminder, of course, also places like New Mexico. We spent some time there most recently with Congressman Gabe Vasquez, the Democrat incumbent, but also because Congressman Hakeem Jeffries was out there trying to stump for him. This is the kind of math that they are doing on a very granular county by county, district by district level to try to claw back seat by seat for Democrats to take back the gavel. But you look at how close it is again, and it's just a reminder that it really could end up being just a matter of 4 seats that could either flip this thing or leave it exactly as it is. And you and I both, on both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue, have watched the reality of a Congress that is this divided at the House level.
Yeah, certainly, Ali, a lot to look at these last 2 weeks. By the way, I really like how you just threw in there that, you've been to Alaska, you've been to New Mexico.
This was a
Definite
really big state to tick off the
warrior.
list, I have to tell you. It was hard to get out to Alaska.
Ali Vitale at the big board, channeling her inner Steve Kornacki. Ali, thank you. And still ahead, the campaign's closing arguments and the closing stretch when anything could still happen. The panel is next. You're watching Meet the Press Now. And welcome back. Donald Trump is promising a lot of Americans that he will eliminate their taxes. Our friends at CNBC crunched the numbers and found his tax reform ideas would exempt 93 million Americans from all or part of their taxes. Those plans include ending taxes on tips, Social Security benefits, as well as tax exemptions for first responders and military personnel. And while that may make for great campaign fodder, it would also leave a massive hole in the federal budget. A nonpartisan committee for a responsible federal budget found that Trump's proposals would make Social Security insolvent in just 6 years. And the study from the group earlier this month found that Trump's proposals would add more than twice as much to the debt as Vice President Harris's plans. Joining me now is our panel. NBC's senior national politics reporter, Sahil Kapoor, NBC News contributor, Jonathan Alter. He is the author of American Reckoning, which is out today. We have it here on the desk. And Danny Pletka, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and an NBC News contributor. Thank you all so much for joining me here. And Sahil, I want to start with you, and I want to begin by playing an exchange that former President Trump had on Fox yesterday. Let's listen.
Do you think it's possible to find a way to eliminate federal taxes? There is a way. And how do you feel about it?
You know, in the old days, when we were a smart country, in the 1890s and all, this is when the country was relatively the richest it ever was. It had all tariffs. It didn't have an income tax.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
So, Sahil, do voters really care about specifics here, or if it's what they want to hear?
Well, I mean, this feels like the no more homework, school is canceled, you can go home, you don't have to study, take the rest of the year off, and you can get straight A's. The plan is a lot of tax breaks, and it's very little in terms of revenue raisers. To your question, though, voters don't really care about specifics. Voters don't really care about the deficit for the most part. They're overwhelmingly worried right now about costs. Right. But the reality is Donald Trump is promising a lot of things that he's extremely unlikely to be able to deliver, and that would blow a hole of about $7 to $8 trillion in the deficits. There's no taxes on I made a list here. He wants to extend his own tax cuts, which would cost over $3 trillion. He wants to end taxes on tips, hundreds of billions of dollars, and taxes on Social Security benefits, more than $1 trillion, and taxes on overtime, which is more than $1 trillion. There's no way he's going to be able to get all of this done. And by the way, he also says he wants to cover IVF, which most of his party doesn't support. So this is shutting the door on the former Republican Party, which used to be concerned about fiscal responsibility.
Well, you did your homework there, Sahil. Danny, though, won't tariffs solve everything?
Oh, for sure. I mean, right, because none of us went to school or studied economics. No, look, I think Sahil is exactly right. But the problem for us, the taxpayers, is that this is a race to the bottom. I mean, one of them wants to cut taxes on tips, but then the other one wants to cut taxes on tips. One of them wants tariffs, but another one wants to give every home buyer $25,000. Woohoo! Why don't they just both get in a helicopter, take all the money they can find, and start tossing it out? That basically summarizes their proposals. The problem is there are a lot of people under those potential helicopters who are looking up and thinking, nice, right?
Well,
Good for me.
Well, Danny, quickly, the Republicans have been operating under this assumption that the economy is their issue. But a new poll suggests that when you break it down, the vice president has actually closed some of those gaps when it comes to the economy. So do you think the Trump campaign should be worried?
No, I don't think the Trump campaign should be worried. I think they both should be worried about the fact that they're blowing out our deficit, that our service on our national debt is increasing to the point where it is going to be one of the largest ticket items on the national budget, and that neither of them have made any commitment, indeed nobody in politics has made any commitment to dealing with the elephant in the room, the donkey in the room, you can call it whatever you want, which is entitlement spending. We can't keep on this track and be a serious country anymore.
Well, has any politician ever looked at entitlements? But Jonathan, I want to turn to you. Look, Vice President Harris was asked about, her economic proposals in 60 Minutes a few weeks back. She struggled to say how she would pay for them, other than to say, she'd work with Congress. But that's a tall order, isn't it?
Well, we don't know what the shape of the Congress is going to be, but before I address that, I can't let Trump's Make America Great Again like it was in the 1890s. He says that's when America was at its best. We weren't even a global power in any real way. Most of our growth, which is kind of the wonder of the last 150 years, the engine of the American economy came after 1913, when we introduced an income tax, a progressive income tax, instead of funding the government with a tariff, which is a truly stupid idea, as any economist, I mean any economist will tell you. The idea of a 20% tariff on all imported goods, when so much of what we have is at least some imported components, any economist will tell you that the centerpiece of Trump's economic program is truly idiotic. Now, in terms of Harris, it's true that she doesn't pay for everything, but at least she believes in what are called pay-fors. So she would get a lot of the money from her program from ending most of the Trump 2017 tax cut. Trump doesn't do anything to explain how he would pay for it.
Well,
so
he says
Harris
growth.
is
There'll be growth.
Oh, yeah, but Republicans have been arguing that for years while blowing a hole in the deficit. So that growth argument is total bull.
Blowing the hole in the deficit has been an equal opportunity.
Actually, no,
that we can all agree.
Not so much.
You think the Inflation Reduction Act was a really good plan.
George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton actually together balanced the budget. So sometimes when you have responsible leaders in both parties, you can make progress. And
I'm looking for both those responsible leaders.
Consistently over the last 40 years, Republicans have been in charge of the worst economic times, created many fewer jobs, 2 million compared to 40 million under Democratic administrations, and Republicans have blown up the deficit considerably higher than Democratic presidents.
Well, thank God
so
they
it's not an even
introduced
Steven thing.
Thank God they introduced the income tax.
Just to put a bow on this, both candidates, Harris and Trump, would increase the deficits, according to nonpartisan studies of their proposals. But Trump's would increase the deficit by trillions of dollars more, which is a bit of a role reversal for the two parties. Gabe.
That's right. When Republicans used to be the party of fiscal conservatives, times have changed. But Saha, I do want to switch issues. As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, and we were talking with Monica about this, Vice President Harris is heading to Texas on Friday, where she's going to be focusing on abortion. She'll also be campaigning with Colin Allred. Do you think that will this help at all with the base, or is this just another way to try to reach out to those suburban women voters that she has been trying to reach over the last couple of days?
Yeah, suffice it to say, Kamala Harris is not going to win Texas. I don't think she expects to. That's extremely unlikely. There are two reasons she's going. One is to mobilize her base. That is not just core Democratic voters who are motivated by the issue of abortion rights, but also a lot of maybe irregular voters, low-propensity voters. This is the first election in half a century where abortion is not a federally protected right. There are a lot of voters out there who might feel motivated by this, and their campaign has found that it's a top motivating issue for undecided voters. Our NBC poll found that abortion ranks #1 for single-issue voters, more than any other issue, democracy, immigration, you name it, for any party. So she's going to do that. And the second reason is there's a Senate race there. Colin Allred is polling much better against his opponent, Senator Ted Cruz, than Harris is against Trump. Democrats will probably need a miracle to hold the Senate. Texas gives them the best shot at that miracle.
That would be quite a story. Danny, I want to play quickly what some of Liz Cheney said about the abortion issue yesterday while campaigning with Vice President Harris in the blue wall states. Let's listen to that.
I think there are many of us around the country who have been pro-life, but who have watched what's going on in our states since the Dobbs decision and have watched state legislatures put in place laws that are resulting in women not getting the care they need. And so I think this is not an issue that we're seeing break down across party lines.
Right. So do those comments kind of create a permission structure for voters to, to vote, for Cheney types to vote for Kamala Harris despite their issue, despite Cheney's views on abortion? Sorry.
I don't know what a Cheney type is.
Okay.
But the best description I could give is Democrat. And insofar as she's helping the Democrats bring votes on abortion because she is a pro-choice, pro-life person, perhaps. I think that's probably a pretty small constituency in America. But what do I know?
I don't actually agree with that. I think that
shocking.
The permission structure, which is the most overused term in American politics, but there are quite a number of women in the suburbs who hold the key to this whole election. Harris must increase her totals in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia and outside of Detroit and outside of Milwaukee in order to win this election. And if they are pro-life, but Liz Cheney gives them permission to do it, they might vote for her.
All right, John, thanks so much. We're out of time, but I do want to plug your book. You can get John's new book wherever you get your books. So thank you so much, all of you, for coming and joining me here. I'm Gabe Gutierrez, and we're back tomorrow with more Meet the Press Now. Hallie Jackson's one-on-one interview with Vice President Harris is coming up next, right here on NBC News Now. And you can also watch it tonight at 6:30 Eastern on NBC Nightly News.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.